All right, good to see everybody. As we get started today, what we call our practice is a mock game. And what we do on that, we go through situations and scenarios to get us lined up for Thursday night. Tomorrow, we'll touch the gas and begin that ramp up, getting ready for the game. So it's slow on Monday, a little faster on Tuesday, and then we begin the ramp up tomorrow, getting ready for the games. We have 3 guys that will be out today. That'll be Ballore, Lattimore, and Seibert. And then we're ready to get rolling. The guys are pumped, and so back in the division and on the road. So a lot to look forward to for Thursday night. So,
with the injuries, Brian Robinson, how are you feeling about him? And is it harder in a shorter week to get a good feel for where maybe they're at?
I wouldn't say it's harder, but we'll go through more full speed work tomorrow, and lucky for me, tomorrow we get to meet after practice again. That's 3 days in a row together. That's awesome for us, you guys, So we'll get the chance to visit on that tomorrow. It's a big deal. I know, I was like, why is everybody missing this right now? So, but I will have a better sense, John, because we do more of the speed. But on the side, we work through stuff and, get guys to their spots. So we won't really have the best sense till I visit with you tomorrow, because that's where the speed will be. But the ones that'll be out today will just be those 3.
And then with the Eagles and Saquon Barkley, they've been using him a lot more in the run game lately. Like, what kind of difference has he made to that offense?
Yeah, he's an incredible player. I think the combination, where he can take somebody's leverage and try to work outside because he has the speed to go, and then the ability to spin or to change leverage. And so that, to me, is a factor in itself, the ability to start and stop, with that explosive nature that he has and try to break somebody's leverage. So the tackling, the angles, you want to make sure that point is really hammered home over and over. So that, he's an incredible player, great hands, the run game, the pass game. So when you see him in the Giants doing similar things and now doing similar things here, that transfers.
Obviously with Brian, knows everything around here, so maybe even if he doesn't practice, he could get into a game. For Marshon, what's your sort of comfort level with the guy who hasn't practiced, who's got whatever injury he's got here? What do you need to see from him in terms of practice to be, hey, you can?
Yep, he has a hamstring injury. I was just following up. And so that's one position that can be easier, Ben, from a learning standpoint. It's not, at some of the spots where the call. So part of his learning process, what was it called in New Orleans to what's it called here? What was there, what was here? So seeing that balance go. But again, with him, really it's the speed part that we have to see to make sure he can really do his thing. But this is a bright guy. He's played a lot of football. And so the ability to transfer over, that technique is now called this, that call is now this. He was able to pick up on that quickly.
And in practice, every week you're constantly focusing on everybody doing their P's and Q's and being, as sharp as they can. When it's like there's been a little more drops the last few games, when you see that, does that say, hey, maybe we need to do more of this, or just something like that? Like, whatever. It's just a blip. They can catch the ball. It's no big deal. How do you, from a coaching perspective, how do you address that type of scenario?
You want to make sure, first thing, that we're always kind of chasing the constant improvement. And so can we establish, that progress? Sometimes it goes like this, the progress. You'd love for it always, the progress, just to be in one straight line, but that's not how progress usually goes. There's ups, there's downs, and then you keep wanting it to get up to that space. So along the way, there's going to be those ways. I wish like hell it was just constant improvement all the time, but that is what progress looks like some days, and you have to take the big picture. Are we doing the things right? Are we getting the right drills? Are we getting the right focus onto things? And when those are right, you stay through to that process, and it kind of jumps back up again. And I'm looking forward to seeing us improve in that spot.
2 quick injury-related ones. Cornelius, any update on kind of where he stands in his recovery? And Jamison Crowder, any talk of opening his practice window?
We have not opened the window on Jamison yet. And then Cornelius will participate, did yesterday, and he'll participate again today.
And what have you seen from their young corners, especially Quinn and Mitchell?
Well, I thought, number one, going through that process, like we got a chance to study a lot of those guys, as we were in that same space of looking at players. And so no surprise to see the speed matchups and the ability to stay attached into coverage. They've got a good system. So the skies and mans and zones to go. But they've been impressive so far to me of staying connected, which is hard to do. And this division has some good receivers, and you can see those matchups. How do I go about it? Where do I go? He's off to, both of them are off to an excellent start.
Jaden's run less over the last couple weeks. Is that circumstantial, or is that more an evolution for what he's doing?
Can I choose option C? Okay, where some of it is circumstantial, where it was by design early on, where maybe less, hits would be good. But past that, we're kind of back into, regular mode of how to operate and going through that. So I would say not circumstantial anymore, but there was less last week. And also tip our hat to Pittsburgh. I thought they did a really good job too. They've got a good defense, all three levels. And so I think that was a factor as well.
When he's running less, are there other areas of the offense that you want to see, take a step forward or kind of pick up some of that load?
Well, certainly the run and the play pass, that part goes hand in hand. Last week, just not enough shots, at the plate, both in the run game and the pass game. The time of possession was, a big difference where we're usually on the other end of that, where we can stay on the completions and the runs. So not to have those and not to be in some favorable third downs, I thought that was a real factor.
Hey, good afternoon, Coach.
Good afternoon.
Josh Sweat and Jalen Carter leading the way in sacks for the Philadelphia Eagles. Kind of what do you see in those two players, and then how Vic Fangio is kind of leveraging them to be so effective?
Yeah, I thought Vic, from a system standpoint, is really strong. And a lot of it from the disguised look, is it quarters, is it cover three, and they have a very solid way of disguising that and using that. All of that is driven by the ability of the guys up front to sometimes play two gap, to sometimes penetrate. And Jalen inside has the ability to do both. And there's lots of players that have enough initial quickness to, jump the ball and, as a rusher. But when you have the ability to do both, that makes you a rare player, where I can play square on a block and play it in the run game, or I can get up the field to pass rush. So he has the ability to do both. And I think that's what makes him a really unique player. Sweat on the outside, obviously, the speed, the length, all those are there. But when you have those big fellas that have that twitch like a smaller guy, that's hard to find.
And then we talked a lot about players, like when you make a mistake, kind of taking the lesson from it and then forgetting it, moving forward, getting on with the next task at hand. We talk a lot in sports about the yips, but there's also another side of that where guys sometimes try to come back too hard to make up for a bad performance or a play and end up messing up that way. Beyond the messaging, how do you and your staff go about facilitating an environment where players truly feel like they can actually learn and move on from those mistakes and not have to make up for them?
Yeah, over-trying is a real thing. And we've all seen that in lots of ways. And so the culture here has been created, one of just relentlessly trying to go get better. And that means when you're, in the mark, can I take it a step further? When I know I have to get better at this thing, it may take a little longer. And I realize that has dips and peaks along the way, but they know that is what we do here. And we talk about it. We, work on the things to improve upon. And so I think if you stay in that pocket of just constant improvement, how do you get better? It just levels out over time. But it is, it's a real thing. When you really want to perform so badly, you can press it. We've all been to that spot when you want it so badly that you can play tighter. And we want to make sure that we're on that, that razor's edge of playing fast, where you really put the work in. You can trust it and wanting it so badly. And that's kind of that fine line that you have to balance as a coach, and the mindset for the ball player too.
Schedule's a schedule, but you guys have the late bye week. You're already playing a bunch of teams that have had their byes. The injury report, pretty lengthy going into a short week. How much, if any, impact does a late bye week have, especially on these O-line injuries, kind of the bumps and bruises?
When you get to it, then it'll be good. So I would say I look at it that way to say who wouldn't want a late bye? As the team goes. But as you're getting to that spot, there's challenges that go with that. I don't necessarily think of the team before they had one, but I do think about how it does affect some practices. If a position group may have, more vulnerability to injuries than other, then you do have to adjust your practices. Having a Thursday game, it happens quickly, but I do think it favors a group like ours. This is a really tough-minded group. And so if you told them it was going to be on a Wednesday, they'd be down for it. And so I do think short weeks, it's hard, but it also favors guys who are like, hey, man, I'm down for the fight, and I'll be ready, and whatever it takes kind of attitude. And we got a lot of those kind of guys with a big, giant-sized chip on their shoulder. And so Thursday short, they would have done it on Wednesday if they had to.
And then, kind of going back to July, you had this crawl, walk, run mindset. With some of these rookies, with Sennett and McCaffrey in particular, do you think it's about time for them to start hitting full speed and maybe getting more looks in the offense, getting more involved in kind of the pass game, not just everything else?
It's all part of that development. You're on it. And when the opportunities come, can you absolutely go nail it? And whether that's this week or 2 weeks from now or 4 weeks or 6 weeks from now, all of those opportunities, when they come, they're ready to deliver. And we do have a big, deep group. And I know those moments are coming. They'll be ready because they put the work in. But I can't tell you that'll be this week or next week. But I do know that the work they've put in matters. And having that later bye that you talked about can be especially good for the younger player who by that time will have played probably, in some instances, 15 or 16 games if you count the preseason, which we were there, so we count them.
Realize every game counts. Obviously, you got 7 games left in the regular season. How much of the conversation to your players is, here we are in the standings, this is who we're facing, it's division and wild card implications?
Zero. And that's not a coaching cop-out either, Chick. I just honestly want to stay in the pocket of where we're at. I don't want us to miss a step on this journey, and I don't want to miss the next step that we have to take, and that's this weekend and then the next one and the next one. So I'm having a blast with these guys, not to say I don't want all those things that you're saying to happen, but I also don't want to miss one step with this group. I'm just kind of thinking about today's practice and Thursday's game, man, and I haven't talked to them much past that. It's just let's go battle for it this weekend. And I did the same thing last weekend when a lot of talk was there's 2 games in 11 days and that. And I said, we just got 1 game this week and we got 1 game next week. And so we'll worry about next week then. And so I kind of stay in that pocket. I don't want to miss anything with them.
Dan, a couple of NFL teams already made some changes at offensive coordinator. And kind of as you reflect of the process of bringing Kliff over here to Washington, what have you grown to kind of appreciate about Kliff and what he's done in a short time here in Washington?
A lot that I've grown to appreciate. I've found out the competitor that he is and the detail that he wants to get to with the group. And we've got, we think, a lot more under the hood, about where we can develop and how far we can take it. And Kliff's a really big part of that. He's got incredibly high standards for the group. He's got a very creative mind. So to think that all of our playbook has been seen, you would be mistaken. So that part of plays, sometimes that one's not game ready yet. That's not game ready. And so how do those balance with one another? But I know I certainly appreciate him a lot. And he's also got some big picture perspective that he's able to share with me that he and Anthony can from, a different chair and a different lens. And so I really appreciate that.
You have plenty of experience with these NFC East games. What do you appreciate about these games between the Dallases, between the Giants, between the Eagles?
Hits closer to home for me because I grew up watching the NFC East and the battles that took place. So for me, loving football and growing up and to see these matchups, it's really cool for me because it does hit closer to home where I grew up, like I said, falling in love with the game and seeing it all. So now it's their turn. But to be part of this division, it's really cool. So it's probably more nostalgic for me than for them. But I do know that it's a really cool division and fan bases are awesome. So taking our show on the road to go up and have another division battle Thursday night in November, come on, what are we talking about?
Hey, Coach, I know you had to go up against Saquon twice a year in Dallas. Do you wish you still didn't have to go? Do you wish he was in a different division? You didn't have to face him twice a year? And then how do you prepare this defensive front to go up against him?
The front-wise, it's challenging because of his ability to jump cut. And you may be in the right gap where you think you're supposed to be, and he's got such quickness to accelerate out of that cut. So you don't want a lot of one-man tackles, on a ball player of his ability where he can change and spin. And use things. He's also an effective player out of the backfield, on screens, on swings. He can, catch routes that are down the field that sometimes don't go to the running backs, but in his case, they can. So, yeah, he's an exceptional player, one that we love competing against, but he really has unique skills, like a lot of guys do. He might be a receiver some weeks, or, tight end this week, a quarterback, and so it is, kind of a cool part of the NFL. They've got a number of guys that will test you and push you to the limit, and that's what makes, playing in this, like I said, in this division against this team, a lot of fun. All right, you guys have a good one. Get to see you tomorrow.